An arranged marriage for an inheritance? Forbidden love? A drunk millionaire in New York City? All this can only mean one thing. We're comparing Arthur on this episode of Retro versus Remake. Alright, I'm Dan Bulick.
And I'm Reggie Parker.
Welcome to another episode of Retro versus Remake, a podcast where we discuss films and their remakes. Join us as we explore the question, should this remake exist? Today's films are Arthur, or the Arthur films. Arthur, the original, was made in 1981, starring Dudley Moore, Liza Minnelli, John Gielgud, Geraldine Fitzgerald, Jill Eikenberry, and Stephen Elliott. Directed by Stephen Gordon. Written by Stephen Gordon. Just a little note, this is Stephen Gordon's only directorial of a major feature because he died of a heart attack a year after this movie came out. So that sucks. That's sad. Music by Burt Bacharach. Arthur, 2011. Starring, I wrote Russell Wilson in my notes. Starring Russell Brand, Helen Mirren, Jennifer Garner, Greta Gerwig, Geraldine James, Nick Nolte, and Luis Guzman. Directed by Jason Weiner. Written by Peter Bainham. Music by Theodore Shapiro and Mark Ronson. Okay, Reggie, what is your first experience with either film?
My first experience with both films is for this podcast. I feel like 1981, that comedy, especially with like a British lead, wasn't really on my radar growing up. And the 2011 wasn't really on my radar. I think at that point, Russell Brand appeal wasn't as at its height from what I remember. So I've never seen either of these movies.
You know, I'm in the same boat. I'd never seen either film. I sort of knew a little bit about Arthur,
Sure.
Mostly from The Critic. Every time Dudley Moore was on The Critic, he was just this character from Arthur, and I didn't understand it. Like, why is Dudley Moore always drunk on this show? I didn't realize they were just doing the Arthur thing. And I wasn't really a big Russell Brand guy, so when the movie came out, I was like, I'll pass on the remake. But got to watch both for this, and they're pretty much the same film, plot-wise.
Same plot-wise, maybe some gender swapping with the characters and there's some other things that we'll talk about. But overall, this is more or less the same film.
Yeah. Maybe some of the names are different too, which is make my synopsis a little vague in some areas. But before comparison, here is our synopsis. Arthur is the heir to the Bach fortune. He's incredibly immature and seems to have no direction in life. One thing he loves doing is getting drunk in his home, New York City. His closest friends are his chauffeur Bitterman and servant/parental figure Hobson. One day, Arthur's parents give him an ultimatum. Arthur's parent, and not parents, gives him an ultimatum. Agree to an arranged marriage with Susan Johnson or lose his multi-million-dollar inheritance. He agrees to the marriage. Before he proposes, he accidentally finds love, and he wants to be with this new woman. He's all torn up about it. However, Arthur still proposes to the Susan Johnson, even though he despises her, just to get his inheritance. He's still lovesick over the other girl he met, though. Hobson, who can be cold at times, goes to the girl and tells her how Arthur feels. Arthur and his love get together, but unfortunately, Arthur still has to go through with the arranged marriage. Hobson becomes terminally ill. Arthur then stops drinking, the marriage is put on hold, and he takes care of Hobson until Hobson passes away. The arranged wedding takes place immediately after Hobson's passing. Arthur eventually breaks it off with Susan Johnson, much to her father's chagrin, and chooses to be with the other woman, his true love, even if it costs him his entire inheritance. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, as Arthur gets his inheritance and the girl he loves too. The end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the story of Arthur.
A lot of the plot was the same. It's just the name of the love interest was different, so I had to be pretty vague there, but almost all the characters are the same, except for maybe one gender-swapped character. But since there are so many similarities, I think we have to go into performances to kick off this comparison. And who better than our lead, Arthur? We have Arthur played by Dudley Moore in the original, and not Russell Wilson, but Russell Brand.
Russell Brand.
In the Russell Brand or Russell Brandt? I don't know.
Just Brand.
Russell Brand?
Yeah.
Okay. In the remake. All right, Reggie, how do you want to start this comparison?
I think the way the two films start, we get sort of a stark kind of difference between our two characters. The Dudley Moore, I think I saw this in your notes, was the more boozy of the two. His opening sequence is him with Bitterman driving around, getting drunk and looking for prostitutes, versus the Russell Brand intro. It's a little bit more slick, like you see. I don't know, like the intro seemed almost more actiony than I was expecting.
Yeah.
And you find Russell Brand basically in the Batmobile.
Dressed up as Batman.
Yeah.
With Bitterman as his Robin.
Pretty much. I mean, he's still drinking in this scenario, but you don't see that same act. And I think we're probably going to have to talk a lot about Dudley Moore's sort of portrayal and just how he plays drunk on screen, which I think is about as good as you could without being actually hammered.
Yeah. He was inspired by his old partner, Peter Cook, who we talked about during the Bedazzled episode. The two of them actually kind of went separate ways because Peter Cook's drinking got so bad.
Really?
Yeah. So there's, I don't know if it's completely inspired by him, but I read somewhere that took a little inspiration from Peter Cook's drinking.
Sure. And I mean, he's just the type of guy who, like, he doesn't care if you're in on a joke at all.
He hopes you are, though.
Yeah, he does.
And he's like, come on, this is funny, right? Right? He's kind of self-aware, but as self-aware as a drunk person can be.
Absolutely. He spends most of his time talking like this, and he makes like all these like quick, like, they're not dad jokes, but they're, I don't know how to describe them. Like they're just these,
maybe a little corny.
Yeah, definitely like corny. Like I said, he doesn't really care if anyone's laughing with him, although he wants you to be, and I think that actually captures a lot of that character, where it's this idea that yes, he's drinking for reasons that we'll discuss as we talk about the movie, but he wants to be accepted ultimately. Although all of his actions more or less drive him away from people. He's very good at being like the stumble. He's very good at just like the slurring of the words. Like Dudley Moore puts on a pretty memorable. I mean, I think that's what people love about the movie. Performance with his Arthur.
I thought, when comparing the two Arthurs, I thought his drunk Arthur versus his sober Arthur, that there was a bigger contrast.
Yes.
In his portrayal than there was with Russell Brand's. Like you said, he does a lot more jokes when he's drunk. He does a lot more laughing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know how in a movie like Star Wars, you hear the Vader's, the marching Imperial March theme? That's sort of like his marching theme, just his laughter.
Right.
It's like, once you hear him laughing like that, and it's like, okay, he's drunk. Yeah. I know he's drunk. It's a little over the top.
Right.
But you know, okay, he's in drunk mode right now, and everything he does is because he's drunk right now. And as much as I didn't entirely agree with that, like, it was easy to follow.
Right.
At least, like, okay, he's obviously drunk, so he made a decision.
Sure.
Right? And he went with it. Yeah. As opposed to Russell Brand's Arthur, who I guess is sometimes drunk. It's not as obvious.
He never feels that drunk, other than like the scene where in both films it's very obvious. Like there's sort of like the meetup with Linda. Well, excuse me. There's multiple love interests. It's like the meeting with the love interest, kind of before the wedding, where he's clearly drunk there. I think Russell Brand pulls it off in that scene a little bit more than the rest of the film, where I don't read drunk so much as just kind of like man-child. I know we've described a lot of characters in our films like that, but he's just really childish. Likes to have a laugh, not nearly as like kind of like forward and bombastic as Dudley Moore is, but like like I guess he's drunk because there's a bottle of Makers on the table, but he just does not feel to me like a drunk kind of through and through. Yeah,
he doesn't seem like he has almost that dependency that Dudley Moore's Arthur has to it. There's not really an obvious, I guess, tell that he's drunk or tell that he's sober. He's kind of the same when he's drunk and when he's sober.
Right.
Like Arthur's like just like wild and like laughing all the time, the original. But then he's a lot quieter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he still might crack a few more jokes, but he's definitely just like more reserved.
Right.
Holds back a lot more, and then he's just all over the place when he's drunk. And Russell Brand's kind of just the same.
Yeah.
Kind of all over the place, kind of just snide remarks, being kind of a jerk, no matter if he's drunk or sober.
Sure.
I appreciated Dudley Moore with what he did.
I agree. I think as you were making a description right there, it actually kind of made me think about like drunks and stuff like that, and just like that idea of
you don't know any drunks?
No, I don't know any drunks at all, and I learned a lot of lessons from this film. As a guy that's been on multiple athletic teams, one of which played rugby, I know a couple drunks, and you see it like it's kind of like his I don't know, like it's his mask and cape, like that's his superpower. When he's drunk, he's able to be the kind of laughy, fun guy. And you're right, he does choose as an actor to be more reserved. The overall character's there, but like it's dialed way down, and you can, like you mentioned, you can tell the differences. Russell Brand's just a lot of times when they're doing the drinking stuff, they choose to do these almost like montages, you know, like this sort of thing where it's like Russell Brand's doing his thing, and there's all this action around him, but he himself doesn't have a lot of chances to like clearly be the drunk, and I think that is a huge difference between the two.
Yeah, because I guess it's like they want to show you like, look at all these people having fun because Russell Brand's Arthur's getting drunk. I guess as opposed to the original Arthur when he's kind of the only one getting drunk, and it's just kind of annoying to all the other people most of the time.
Yeah.
So, but it gives Dudley more to do.
Right.
Because you're not just zooming past his drunkenness, you're focused on his drunkenness, as opposed to Russell Brand's Arthur where you're just like, look at everybody getting drunk now. Yeah,
it's like the Russell Brand one, you see media, social media, YouTube and stuff are actually more prevalent. So a lot of his exploits are actually sort of shown after the fact. Like you see the photo of him kind of like on all fours with the whip, and it's like, okay, what's going on there? You see the Batman sequence kind of more so after the fact than actually during it. And it's just one of those things where it's like if you don't show it, it's hard for me to relate to it.
It's one of those things where they're talking about it. Like, look how crazy Arthur is. Arthur, you need to calm down because you're so crazy. Well, show us.
Right.
Movie, right? Show us.
Like the original film, beautiful introduction because one, you do see him messing with people. He's got his head out the window. He's talking to prostitutes and stuff like that. And he takes a hooker to dinner, and he's at this fancy place, and he's clearly hammered. And he's like, this is the princess of... and it's just like him being out of control, and you get to see it real time. And you also do get to see the aftermath. Again, both films have sort of the next day sequence where Hobson gets introduced, but you really do get to see Dudley Moore, like, here's a train set, and he's literally waking up in bed with not some girl he hooked up with, but like an actual hooker. And like there seems to be sort of like protocol for this. Like, all right, you leave, don't, you know.
Yeah.
Again, because it's a film, we've talked about this with other films. It's like that show don't tell aspect because it is a visual medium. Ultimately.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't realize like you get more of the after all Arthur's Madness in the remake as opposed to let's hang out with him. Let's see the fun drunken or why he's drinking and try to learn a little bit about him. And also just going back to like all the movie stuff, like that's cool.
Right.
All the movie stuff, but it's like, I feel like it's kind of almost a crutch for that Arthur because he doesn't really do anything. He spends a lot of money on this cool stuff.
Right.
But all that's making me think of is these other movies.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting pulled out of this movie. It's like, oh yeah, Batman Forever.
Right.
Specifically Batman Forever, which is funny because it's a Schumacher Batman. It's not the one you think you would buy the Batmobile for. Right. But then, you know, to keep doing that like time and time again, it's like, well, let's do something else a little different, maybe.
Right. It's like, all right, there is a callback of that at the end, but like just having like these movie-themed vehicles and like movie-themed apparel around, you're right that when you're watching a film that hasn't really done much to like establish itself,
Yeah,
to just sort of like spend a lot of the time being like having the Ghostbusters like gun would be cool, or like having the Batmobile, and like you said, the wrong Batmobile. Having that Batmobile, it's just like, all right, like again, yeah, I guess this would be kind of cool stuff, but like it even still doesn't really rise to the point of it is childish, but like these days we have examples of like super rich people doing this stuff, like a fantasy factory type deal. So it's like, yeah, it's irresponsible, but it didn't quite have that same sort of sadness of the dependency, like the idea of this guy who's like just can't get his shit together, no matter what.
Guy has all the money in the world and he's just fucking up all the time. And just, it was weird how the remake starts, because it starts like a Batman movie. He's getting all suited up. And like you said, just maybe make your own identity first before you're already parodying a movie, because it just feels like it's just a parody right off the bat.
I mean, even if like you had like a scene of him like he's got the glass there and he's like drinking before he gets in the car.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even, I mean, I guess both artists has it, but like it doesn't even really matter that he's drunk. Bitterman's not.
Right.
You know, like he's driving. But like the whole idea of just opening like an action movie, like you said, just sort of you have to fully reset because it's not an action movie.
Exactly.
Whereas like the original Arthur, you're doing all of your characters sort of world building as we like to talk about right there. It's like he's clearly drunk. He's got this driver that's kind of annoyed with him, but kind of used to it.
You hear it's great too in the original, because you don't see Arthur, you see the car,
right?
And you just hear the laughing. It's like Jaws. You hear the music, and so you're like, "What is happening?" Right? It's drawing you in, and then it's slowly, unveiling the world of Arthur to you,
right?
As opposed to the remake, where it's just like it's Batman. It's like, okay,
right.
Sure, I guess.
Right. And it was like one of those things where, like, if I didn't have the context of the first film, I would have been really confused.
Yeah.
There, it's like okay, I get they have a decent budget here clearly, and they wanted to like spend it, show that this is like a bigger film for them, but it just didn't capture the character. Well, I guess it captured the Russell Brand version of it, but it I think sort of based on what we're saying, that feels slightly inferior because he just doesn't showcase that same sort of flaw of being a drunk, as opposed to this one where they're saying he's a drunk, but really, if you would have just said that he just refuses to grow up,
it could have been the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
The booze didn't matter, and I think that like the booze is more important for the character Arthur than this movie is showing us.
That's true. That's a good point. You kind of mentioned man-child before. Do you want to get into that a little bit? Because they're both kind of man-child. Like, we should also say Russell Brand significantly younger than Dudley Moore was.
That's true.
But they're both kind of, man-child. Dudley Moore has, like you said, the choo-choo train. He has a lot of toys still.
Rubber duckies.
He's in the back with the rubber duckies and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Russell Brand is watching a lot of cartoons and being read bedtime stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. And he's not just watching like any cartoon. He's watching like super old cartoons, like the cartoons you think Dudley Moore's Arthur would be watching.
Right. But it, like isn't. Though.
Yeah. He's not watching those cartoons. He's not getting read bedtime stories.
So I guess it could kind of be a callback to the time for the original Arthur. I guess if you wanted to make that connection. But since that's not in that original film anyway, it doesn't really it doesn't really make sense that he watches old cartoons.
Yeah, old Looney Tunes stuff.
I just didn't really get it. And they sort of just they reference it, but they kind of gloss over it, so like it doesn't seem that important. But like the other Arthur does feel Dudley Moore's does feel more adult because he's in more adult situations. I think like I'm harping on a lot, but like hooking up with a hooker within the first 5 minutes of a film is like an adult subject matter. When Hobson comes in, and we'll talk a lot about Hobson, but like this first time, and Dudley Moore's getting in the bathroom, he's like, "Do you want me to wash your dick, sir?" I'm like, okay, it's got a little bit of edge,
Yeah, a little bit,
like pop to it. And
I mean, the original movie definitely has more edge because not only is he like with that hooker,
yeah,
but like when he has dinner with her,
right?
Like, she mentions how she got raped when she was like
Yeah,
6 or something.
You
It's
were
like
100%
wow,
right about that. Yeah,
I wasn't ready for that.
You're right. You're right.
So they cover a lot of heavy subjects in the first like 10 minutes of the original comedy. Comedy.
That's true. But like even when that happens, he like instead of being like, "Oh my god, this is so bad," he like goes right into another joke.
He's like, "So you had a pretty good 6 years before that."
I love that like when those bits land. I think and this is probably just like my patience with drunks in general in my life now. It's like there are times where I get annoyed with Dudley Moore Arthur because it's like, oh my god, why would you do this? Why would you do that? But it's like, yeah, that's what he would do.
That's what drunks do.
You know? And I don't know, like I get why Russell Brand's supposed to be more buttoned together because like they actually bring in the companies that his family owns and like how he's affecting like stock, I guess. So like that is more grounded in realism, I guess, but it just I don't know, like there's plenty of like examples in the real world of like kids of rich families that don't have their shit together.
Yeah.
And like it's not that bad. Like Paris Hilton, for instance, didn't sink her family's empire.
Yeah, if anything helped make a lot more money.
Yeah, agreed. So I just like I think that they were getting more into how this could affect a business, and I didn't find that as compelling as like this case study of this one kind of drunk guy. I felt like he was more important than his wealth.
Anything else about the man-child stuff you want to talk about, or?
Because I think that stuff comes into play more once we get into like the love interests and some of the more responsibilities the character picks up throughout the film. Like him being a man-child at first doesn't really hurt much because although it is like he's in the papers and the tabloids, there isn't anything grounding the characters yet if you're just looking at them. So it's like, okay, this is irresponsible, but it seems to be fine because he's still rich. And I think once we introduce some of the drama or like the problems as they are, I think that's when maybe we can kind of like segue back into like man-child and how it's affecting those situations.
Okay. Do we want to say which Arthur we like more now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think even without getting into the other characters and how they affect them, I don't think much changes for me here. I greatly prefer the Dudley Moore Arthur to Russell Brand.
Agreed. It's just the easier one to follow. I think that whole wanting to have everybody to have a good time like he is, I thought that was a really charming trait. I didn't really get that so much from Russell Brand. It didn't seem like it mattered if everybody around him was having as much fun because we just go past those scenes so fast. Right. There was a scene where he was giving out money to everybody, but then we just immediately go to the next day where everybody's hungover. Yeah. So it's like, if I can get a little more of that night before, like you said in the weekend original. But I just thought Dudley Moore was a little more enjoyable.
In the remake, they miss a lot of opportunities to flesh out the character. I think they find some more opportunities with the love interest to flesh out the character. Mm-hmm. But I think in these interactions where you're having the people over, it's important for us to know sort of how Arthur's nights are going as opposed to just kind of like doing these like
kind of hangover kind of flashbacks, like what happened, or
flashbacks, and just like you don't even hear any of the other characters because like there's just like a score over like these scenes where like he's the sole thing and like everything else is going fast around him. It's like I guess that's kind of what drinking's like, but I can relate more to the guy acting drunk than the idea of like blacking out. It's kind of like this. It's like I guess
Well, let's talk about another character that'll help us flesh out the Arthurs more too. Obviously, number 2 important character I think is Hobson.
Hobson is very important.
Portrayed by John Gielgud in the original and Helen Mirren in the remake. So that's one of our gender swaps that we have in the remake.
Absolutely.
Should we get into the character? Did you want to talk about the gender swap?
The gender swap is, I don't think it greatly affects the character that is gender swap, because I think you're more or less getting the same thing, where it's like whether it's replacing the father he doesn't have or replacing the mother he doesn't have, it kind of brings you to the same place. Actually having it be a woman in the remake feels more boy, the feminists are gonna kill me. But like, it feels more like she's more mothering and like nurturing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. Okay, I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat. But like, I think it did fit. Like, I don't know if it necessarily put it over the top for me in any way, but just like the idea of like his mother is so absentee that this woman has been like filling that role, and then we'll talk about it, but we learned to her own detriment.
Yeah,
I think I don't know, like yeah, it kind of fit that character that he needed a mother, but it didn't. I don't think it really changes enough for me to lean either way.
I mean, like you said, I do think he was babied more, and I don't know if that's that maternal thing or if it's just like the script. Because, like we said, he gets in the remake, he gets read bedtime stories.
Right.
It does feel like he's a little, babied more.
Sure.
From Hobson there. I mean, they're kind of essentially the same character. They're both pretty snarky, and they're both very serious at times.
Sure.
But they can be humorous also. It seems like Helen Mirren's Hobson got a little screwed over more in her life.
It seems like it.
Yeah, but I guess the main thing about being, if it's a man or a woman as Hobson, is now it has to be the dad who's in charge of the inheritance, or it's got to be the mom in charge of the inheritance, because it has to replace that person in Arthur's life.
Yeah.
But I guess it could have been father or a mother figure.
I don't think that ultimately changes anything. I don't know if it's a sign of the times thing, like maybe people were putting more emphasis on growing up with a dad versus now, where it was like maybe you see a little bit less of that. I don't think it really mattered. I think it was just really the choice of who's a good actor or actress of also like sort of British descent that we can sort of use for our remake. I'll say this, like for me, even though like it's clear in both films that Hobson's ultimately like this sort of paternal figure, I felt like in the original there's a little bit less throughout the entire film. By the way, there's a little bit less hand holding. Yeah, and it was not apparent right away that Hobson is filling this role because he is being like not a dick, but he gives as much as
there's pushback from his Hobson.
Absolutely, and like you still kind of get the pushback from Helen Mirren, but it's like these snarky lines that also, but like she's still doing. I don't know, like. That one little line, like about
watching the dick. Yeah, it really that really sets up Hobson for like the rest of the movie. Yeah, you're like this. Okay, that's who we're dealing with here. It really is an important line.
I think it's a huge line because it gives Hobson some bite.
Yeah,
like it's like okay, like I'm not here to just take your shit. Like I'm gonna give it back. Where it's like Helen Mirren's giving it back, but not. I mean, that one line makes a huge difference.
Definitely, and Helen Mirren's Hobson definitely doesn't push back as much. She feels like more she's trying to just guide him in the right direction.
Right.
But there, she's not a total pushover. But when you start off your character like that, like immediately, pretty much. And
that's like the opening line almost.
Yeah. It really helps establish the character. The power structure pretty early on in the original, and then the remake, because I guess I'm a little biased because I already saw the original, so I kind of already knew the power structure, but I don't feel like they established it as well as the original.
No, I mean, like, right there, though you find that, like, all right, this is part of it. This is kind of Hobson's way of trying to help Dudley Moore's Arthur grow up. It felt like, early on in the film, I didn't really know what was going on. It was like, Bitterman like Arthur? Does Hobson like Arthur? And, like, that's an actual question that you could have in that film. Whereas, like, I do feel that a lot of what this remake sort of does that, and, I guess we'll get into whether right or wrong. What it does is it fleshes things out in a way that feels me a bit like hand-holding. They're like, don't worry, Hobson likes him. This is just, they're having fun, but, like, this is like a mother figure, and they, like, really establish that early and often.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely liked in the original how you weren't sure about Hobson. It wasn't until one scene in the original where I knew, okay, Hobson really does care about Arthur. It's when Arthur was in his father's office.
Yes.
And then a guy just comes up and he's like, can you believe that he is going to be the one who inherit everything? And then Hobson says, like, once you go, like, I forgot, suck a dick or something. I don't know. He says something like to really stand up for Arthur, and it's like, okay, at that moment you knew.
Right.
But I feel like you're right. The remake, there was more hand holding. You kind of knew right away that Hobson was looking out for Arthur's best interest. I mean, she was going through the phone, deleting all the photos.
Right.
And so you knew pretty immediately that she's on Arthur's side. She's going to take care of Arthur. She didn't have that pushback line about, like, washing your dick.
so
which was really funny. Yeah, less hand-holding. I'm going to give it to the original Hobson in that part.
Yeah, definitely in that regard. I think Helen Mirren does a bang-up job. Like, she's
one of the strongest characters in the remake.
Completely strong character, well acted. Does a lot with what she's given. I think both of the Hobsons pull that off. Like, they bring weight into a film that otherwise is just purely like kind of this drunken comedic thing. But like, there's a character here that's steady throughout the film, and I think both of them pull that off. Because of the arc as well, I actually found the male Hobson's death, and maybe, again, you're right, because I watched the original first, maybe I knew it was going to happen.
Right.
But I found it more surprising and more kind of heartfelt. And I think it goes back to what you were saying before, that the response to Hobson dying in the original is portrayed much more like of a turn for Arthur. He looks physically like healthier. He looks more like adult as he's taking care of his friend who spent his whole life taking care of him. And I felt that Dudley Moore seemed to be really turning a corner with this Hobson. I didn't get the same arc for our characters with Russell Brand and Helen Mirren.
Yeah, I didn't get that feeling either, for I guess a couple of reasons. Well, in the original, Arthur, when he meets his love interest first, he says, he's really drunk when he says this, so you're not really sure like how true it is, but he's like, if you ever need help, I'll take care of you.
Right.
I will take care of you. And you actually get to see him do that with Hobson in the original. And I thought that was really a beautiful moment in this pretty stupid, silly film. Just to see that, he really meant it. This is a genuine, good guy. Like, he really means these things he says when he's drunk. So I thought that was a really adult, nice moment for him. Yeah, Russell Brand, when he's taking care of Hobson, he does the same thing, stops drinking. He doesn't have, I guess, the same physical change that the original Arthur has. But he also kind of messes up with his love interest after that as well. We'll get into it, I think, when we talk about her more. So it doesn't seem like much of a turn because he's still making kind of the same mistakes that he made before.
Like while Dudley Moore's character, you could stop the movie there and be like, what a redemption story for the guy. At least that's how it seems during that entire interaction. It really, in that time before he sort of gives way to his own sort of depression, in that time he's making very adult decisions and he's doing things the right way for the first time in his life. And like you mentioned, when you add this element of like Russell Brand's character is still able to screw things up, he's not really learning lessons in this time period. Like, he feels bad and he wants to take care of his friend, but he's not. He still seemingly needs help.
Yeah. And his turn doesn't really come till almost the end of the movie, which we'll get to.
Totally. But I think you're right. The way Dudley Moore comes in with the toys when he finds out Hobson's sick, like the time that they spend together feels more organic and real to me. It did feel like that Hobson appreciated it in a way where, like, Helen Mirren, to me, although she accepts this Arthur's, like...
Darth Vader mask.
Yeah, it's just like... It's still a little silly without the weight, where it's like, all right, when they get pop guns and they're putting cowboy hats on it, like, it's a silly thing happening, but, like, again, Darth Vader is another movie reference, another kind of
exactly, right? Yeah, just riding. Okay, you like Star Wars? Well, we're doing Star Wars too. We like it, so you like us.
Like, I was kind of sitting there. I was like, I kind of hope they put this Darth Vader mask on Helen Mirren.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Like, I did want to see that because I was like, is Dame Helen Mirren gonna do a Star Wars thing? But at the same time, I was like, I shouldn't be thinking, is Helen Mirren gonna put on a Star Wars mask for, like, because again, I'm not thinking about the movie at that point. I'm thinking about the actress.
Right,
and like the other film made me feel like, how is this Hobson's, rough patch or death ultimately, how is this going to affect the character? I wasn't thinking about the character as much here.
You just wanted to see something cool.
yeah, and I think that's kind of what the remake is good at being like, let me see how they take this on, you know. But I think that too the loss of, again, some of the weight, like as goofy as the original movie is, there's heart in there that just it's surprising actually how much of that is in that film.
Yeah. So I guess I said already that I prefer the original Hobson.
And I went on a whole rant that led nowhere, as I want to do. No, the original Hobson is the better Hobson in terms of impact on the story as well. The Helen Mirren thing, they do flesh her out with the story of like she gave up on her own love to keep raising Arthur. Which is, again, nice. It fleshes things out a little bit more, makes her death a little more tragic. But I think that...
What did you think about that they included that? Because the original Hobson, it's not like he gave up a life for Arthur.
I think it actually was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't think it added anything.
I think it made her life more kind of tragic than it needed to be. I mean, even with all of her efforts, like if you're looking at the movie at that point, it hasn't really accomplished anything for this gentleman. Like, she gave her best despite herself, and he like is still kind of a bumbling idiot. Whereas like the original Hobson was like, it's sad enough that they were friends. It's sad enough that they were friends, so we didn't need it. So again, wrapping all this up, original Hobson is my go-to.
Yeah, I thought Helen Mirren did fine. I thought it was unnecessary to add this sad backstory that she had to give up her life for Arthur because his dad passed away. So, I have to stay. And it didn't really affect him the rest of the movie at all. No. And like you said, like he was still kind of a fuck up because she was in his life. So how much of an impact was her sacrificing her life to have on him? So, I thought she was fine. I thought she was one of the better characters in the remake for sure. But I still think that original Hobson, that shall I wash your dick line, it goes such a long way. It sets the tone. It sets the tone beautifully.
It's a tone-setting statement. I find it hard to say anything negative about Helen Mirren herself. I think she's doing a phenomenal job in the film. It just feels realer in the original. Like there's something about that chemistry that just feels a little bit more substantial to me. So when Hobson's dying, I feel like Hobson, the character, is dying.
Right.
Not that like, oh man, Helen Mirren did a good job and here goes that character. I didn't feel like I was in the movie. I felt like I was, experiencing something. Was like, oh wow, that's an interesting take on the character from that other film. Which I think you made a great point earlier. Like when you add all these movie elements, I'm just thinking about all these other films.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't see Hobson. I saw Helen Mirren.
Right.
And so
I agree.
The remake had some interesting casting choices where they put their star power. And I think we'll get into that with our next character. I think maybe we should talk about the love interest.
Let's go there because as much as the love interest could be the childhood friend, nanny, butler, like in a way there's love there. And I think they even make a comment about this in the other film, in the remake. I think they say like Helen Mirren has a line about her like helping him kind of. I don't know if you recall that. I think there's a line in there somewhere where she's like, well, if you want to like date this guy, I hope you're ready to basically take care of him the way that I am. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Let's chop that out.
We'll come back to that.
But,
all right. Our love interest, they renamed her in the remake. Yeah. Linda in the original, portrayed by Liza Minnelli. And we have Naomi in the remake, portrayed by Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig.
Yeah. Who I was not familiar with, and then I looked her up. I was like, oh, she's the director of those movies that are really good.
Yeah, she's incredible, actually.
I guess I'll just go into a little bit of their backstories, because they changed that too. Linda was an actress who's really a waitress, but she's also kind of a con artist, because she was stealing. That's how she met Arthur, as opposed to Naomi, who was an illegal tour guide / children's author.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting change there. I guess that's why they changed her name.
Maybe. Again, this is one of those moments where just some of the choices, despite the actor or actress's ability, as we're seeing with Helen Mirren, the choices that they make in the remake don't really feel as organic to me as they did in the original.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like this woman who's an actress, but like any person who's an inspired actress, are you really an actress? You know, she's.
Well, we already know she's a con artist, so she could be conning Arthur again.
That's true. Again, there's an edge here. Is the word that's coming to mind. She's in a store stealing ties. You know, she's like actually doing crime.
Right.
She's a fast talker. She goes with things in a way that you don't see in this remake. Like, whereas like Naomi's reacting to things like, "Oh, this is happening." Like Liza Minnelli's kind of like it's almost like improv. Yes, and
right.
Oh, yes, dear, we are. You know, like
she's really quick on her feet.
Super quick on her feet. Super. I believed that Arthur would like that one.
Right. Yeah.
Like I believe that.
You could see that appeal. You know, this millionaire who kind of has everything, and just to see somebody who doesn't have everything, and just what they're doing to kind of to try to get everything they want in their life. So you can see that appeal that she has for him. But the Naomi one,
it's hard to
it's a lot harder to sell.
Hard to capture. It's one of those things where like the movie kind of want to have it both ways, where like she's independent and smart and you know, free spirit. I think that's ultimately what Arthur likes about both of them, because when you see Liza Minnelli stealing the tie, there's a freedom to that Arthur doesn't have in his world, and I think that's part of why he likes her. That she has that same sort of I don't give a shit spirit that he does. In this other film, like I feel like Russell Brand likes more just like her look on the front end. But then it's like, why would she like him? Because again, she's trying to produce her own book. She's going out and trying to like start her life. And really, the only thing that you can say that she likes about him, at least the way the movie's portraying it, is he's willing to do these lavish kind of rich things, and it sort of it fights against what they want the character to be. It's like, is she in it for the money, or is she in it for him? It doesn't feel like either one of them are really there for each other in the early parts of the film. I think they flesh it out a little bit, but like I don't really get why she would like actually go on the date originally with him.
Yeah, I don't know why she would go out with him. I don't really know why he would go out with her either. I was scratching my head over the Naomi Arthur connection in the remake. I really couldn't put it together, and we'll get into it more when we talk about Susan Johnson also.
Right. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, it's just like you said in the original. You know, he's shopping, he sees the shoplifter, and then they have this witty banter for the cops, and then they kind of bring that back later at Arthur's engagement party where they're lying. They lie to some party guest. They lie to his fiance. It's this thing that the movie's building, and then this thing that they have together that they're building on. And then they kind of start off like that in the remake, where they're both lying to the cop because she's an illegal tour guide, which I guess is a thing. I don't know. Yeah. I thought that was a weird decision. Anyway, they don't really come back to that ever in the movie.
No.
And then Naomi's just kind of, I'm just going to say, she's boring as shit in the remake.
I felt, when I was watching the film, that what I liked about what they were doing with Naomi was they were kind of fleshing out some of the interaction between the two, and it felt, again, the word that's come to mind is sort of more like sweet. It felt like more kind of like, again, childish still.
So is that why he likes her? Because she's sweet? I couldn't figure out why he liked her.
That's the thing. Like, you don't have that thing that brings it back to, like, why these two.
Right.
Whereas, like, Liza Minnelli, I just think that because they're both able, like you said, to, like, verbally spar, and they have this, like...
She has the edge that's really appealing to him.
Edge is super important. This remake, I almost felt like... It's like you got an Arthur film, and then you got, like, 500 Days of Summer kind of sandwiched in. Like, she just gave me, like, the vibe of, like, like a Zoe Deschanel.
I can see that. Yeah,
You know, like I was just getting like the Zoe Deschanel thing where it's like
just this quirky girl.
Yeah, I'm quirky, and like I guess Arthur's quirky too when you put it all together, and it's like together I don't know, like you're saying, I don't know if he likes her or like the idea of her, the idea of like a quirky girl that like. No, actually, now I'm thinking about it, like, what's the appeal? Like, even on their date, it's like, wow, this is cool. There's acrobats, and we close Central Station, and she's giving more of her backstory that really doesn't have anything to do with them.
Yeah,
she's like, I like children's stories, and like
he's like, I like being read children's stories, and then they quote children's books to each other. Which, wouldn't you think that's weird if you started dating a man and he's able to really quote children's books that easily?
That's fair.
That he's in the state of Arrested Development. It's like, should I be dating this man? Unless he's in children's books too, which he's not.
I think also, now that I'm thinking about it in this context as well, he's trying to help her a lot in a way that she's not really trying to help him. Mm-hmm. And I guess because we're spending more time in the idea that she's a sweet person, she's not really doing anything to inspire him to be better, but he's trying to inspire her to be better. And it's sort of this thing where the character, again, has not been established in a way that, I don't know, like, what is Naomi doing that's making Arthur better? You know, I'm not seeing it, but it seems to be something that they're focused on. Whereas, like, you don't get as much of, like, the one-on-one sort of date interactions with them in the original, but, like, I guess just call it chemistry. Something feels more organic and right about what's going on. And I think it's not really about him taking care of her because she's pushing back against that a lot throughout the film. But it's sort of more about him just being overall infatuated with her. I don't feel like the power dynamic. I mean, obviously, it all balances the relationship, but it doesn't feel like Liza Minnelli needs anything from him.
Yeah. You know? I mean, I still feel like the power dynamic in the original is a little more even. Because there is that back and forth that they have. And it could just be that they don't have the chemistry, but I didn't feel that in the remake at all. I mean, sure, Arthur's a better date in the remake because, that's amazing. You closed the Grand Central and you added all that stuff that you bullshitted about to the cop. But it's like, I didn't feel any chemistry, and I didn't feel like there was that fun back and forth as much as there was in the original.
No. I mean, even as we're talking about this, I am sort of even thinking about the Naomi character, who is a little naive and childish herself. The idea of, I always thought, I mean, they both have lines, but like the moon's following me. It just didn't feel very. I think this comes back to what we were saying before. This man-child. She didn't seem to be very mature herself.
No, she liked the same cartoons Arthur did.
You know, like I just didn't get how them working out was going to help either one of them other than his money. Whereas like Liza Minnelli is really sort of liberating him from this world that he's grown accustomed to, but like there's nothing there for him.
Right.
Whereas like this, I don't see how these two getting together would really change either one of their behavior. I guess they would just both have money and be able to do the things they want to do as a unit.
Rent out Grand Central more.
I guess she could do more children's books being published by his publishing house. Like, I don't get it, you know.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. It's an odd choice, so let's.
Yeah, and there's no moment like this, right, in the original. It's just a remake exclusive. While Arthur's taking care of Hobson, him and Naomi are sort of on the outs because she's upset that he's marrying somebody, which I want to come back to. Maybe we'll talk about that when we get to Susan Johnson. But she's finally come back because Hobson's sick. You know, she cares about Hobson. So she tells Arthur, hey, my book is getting published. He's like, wow, it's amazing.
Right.
And then it's unveiled that like it's only getting published because Arthur bought the publishing company.
Right.
He, like I said before, after Hobson gets sick in the original, Arthur kind of grows, but he did this while he's taking care of Hobson, so he didn't really learn anything. He's still fucking up.
Yeah. I think this is getting us dangerously into Susan Johnson territory, so maybe we are going to segue into that.
We can talk about Susan Johnson.
I think we'll have to, because when you're describing that sequence, that is a purely like Susan Johnson moment, more or less. Like
Right.
it's got that like I think as we were talking about Greta Gerwig in here, it felt like I was saying, two different movies. Like you had the Arthur storyline, then you had like this rom-com sort of like storyline, and they didn't feel connected the way the first film did.
Right.
So it's just like, all right, this was very arbitrary actually for Susan Johnson to come in, tell this love interest sort of what's happening with the publishing company.
They gave us this big bad that we didn't necessarily have in the
Right.
original.
Right.
Well, let's just talk about Susan Johnson.
Mhm.
Susan Johnson, portrayed by Jill Eckenberry in the original, and then we have her portrayed by Jennifer Gardner in the remake.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to keep going on that point?
Yes. So in the original, Susan, one you get a decent amount of Susan, but like not nearly as much
No,
as you get in the remake.
not at all.
In Susan, to me, I think the movie allows her to be a sympathetic character that you don't have in the remake. Like, she wants to marry Arthur because she's genuinely like in love with him for some strange reason.
Right.
Like she makes the line at dinner where it's like, you know, you can get as drunk as you want, you can curse me, you can leave for months, but like we're a thing. Even when Arthur's like messing up or he's trying to get with a completely different woman on like their wedding day, you know, like that Susan is more of an innocent bystander that things are kind of like happening to, as opposed to like someone trying to fuck Arthur over. I mean, like marrying Susan Johnson isn't the right move for him in the original because, you know, I don't think she's the right woman for him in general, not because she's a bad person.
Right.
Like,
And he just doesn't like her.
that's all. That's really all that's happening there, and I think that's all that needs
Right.
to be happening there. The Jennifer Garner Susan is a little more.
More of a strong, independent woman.
Yeah, she's got motivations that are outside of liking Arthur. Like it's very clear that she's trying to work her way up the corporate ladder, and she's headstrong. She's in magazines. Like she's got her own shit going on.
Yeah.
And what's good about that Susan is there's actually more moments for her to bring comedy into the film. She, again, this is a hand-holding thing, but she lays out exactly why she's doing the things that she's doing and what her plans are. But like, they also make her a villain in a way that I don't necessarily think was needed.
And I don't think they exactly pulled it off either.
I agree that I don't think they pulled that off.
I don't know if they showed us all this extra stuff with Jennifer Garner to make us hate her more and to have us root for the Naomi character more, but it didn't work for me. Actually, by having her, showing her do more stuff, I liked her more than Naomi in the end.
Yeah. There's that double-edged sword where it's like, yeah, this Susan, I can see them having fun.
Right.
This Susan is, maybe for selfish reasons to an extent, is actually trying to make his life better.
Yeah, it ultimately would be better if you didn't marry her.
Like she's basically saying, look, you clearly aren't mature enough to handle this on your own. This is a major company. There's a lot of money at stake. You put my name behind you, and you'll be able to sort of continue this lifestyle.
Yeah, it'll elevate me, and I'll be there. I'll be this like support structure for you. You can do whatever you want, and I'll handle the heavy work. You know.
Right. Which is why I think when they make that turn of movie villain mustache twirling, I'm going to fuck that. Like, this is my money. Like, I'm going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be my name. I'm in charge of things. It was just like, all right. Like, I guess that was there, but it felt very shoehorned in at the wedding for her to be like, you're going to marry me because I'm taking your last name and I'm taking the bot fortune. I don't think that was necessary for the character. And as you mentioned, because there's all these kind of cool scenes with Jennifer Garner with the horseback riding and like, you know, she's tough. She's like,
tough.
She's got him by the balls.
She's independent. She can be spontaneous. Okay, just before I get more into her, like the original Susan Johnson, like you said, she's very sympathetic. We don't got a lot of screen time with her. You know, she seems like a sweet girl, but obviously we're spending more time with Melinda, so we like her more.
Right.
The remake we spend a lot more time with Susan Johnson.
So much time.
And I liked her because we got to spend more time with her. Like I said, she seems like a really fun drunk. She knows what she wants. He calls her boring and she's not spontaneous. What does she do? She shows up fucking drunk and wants to, like, in this sexy outfit. And it's like, how's this for spontaneity? So she's, like, willing to go these lengths to please him. And I was like, okay, go with her. She seems more of his, like, wild lifestyle. Like, you want to get drunk? You want to date girls? Great, because I want to date girls too. It's like, what? Yeah. It's a win-win, man.
What's the problem? Right.
I know. What? I don't know why he hates her. Like, by showing me more of her, I liked her more. And I liked her a lot more than Naomi. Yeah. So it was... Talking about double-edged sword, it did not work for me that you're trying to make me hate this woman. You're trying to make her a villain.
So you're saying putting Jennifer Garner in lingerie in the movie was not the right move to make Greta Gerwig your standout.
I mean, what a terrible decision. I don't know. I mean, I get it because, like, you hire Jennifer Garner, you're not just going to have her do 1 or 2 lines. You got to give her some shit to do. But maybe you should have cast somebody else. So
as you're saying this, like, I took it at face value. Like, as you're describing it, I'm like, fuck, that is a cool character.
Yeah, no. And, like, I said this before, like, I think the remake did a bad job of casting. I mean, talk about a mismatch here. You have the evil villain, and she's the star power Jennifer Garner. Right. And then Greta Gerwig, who's coming up now. Not in 2011 when this movie was being made. That's good. No, she was a complete unknown then. And, she's not as interesting of a character. Right. So you have the star power and an interesting character versus no star power and a pretty boring character. I'm rooting for your villain, quote unquote, because she's got a lot more to do. She seems a lot more fun. She's sexy. She's got pretty much everything. And can I just get into that ending too? Because, like, oh, wait, you want to just marry him just for the money? Well, forget this. Wait, didn't you want him to marry her just to get rid of that publicity? So it's like you were using her just like she wants to use you. What is the problem there? Right. Like, I didn't see, like, oh, this evil temptress, we can't have him marry her because she just wants the money. Well, he just wants a good image, or the mom just wants him to have a good image. So I
think you're 100%...
Sorry, I had a lot to say.
No, that's great. Because I think, as you're saying, it's like, you're right. The mom, that turn doesn't make sense for the mother either, because, like, they're business partners, more or less. This was the plan. Right. This is the plan. You know? like Arthur's going to marry you, so, like, you will get like, they said it out loud. You'll get the family name and the ability to, like, steer the publicity towards you. Because, like, someone capable is in charge. We know Arthur's a screw-up, and we know she's here for the last name. So, like, for her to be at the wedding, like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
That's just not okay.
It made her character make a lot less sense than mom.
You're right. And I know I keep saying this a bit, but, like, that idea of, like, the indie Zooey Deschanel movie packed into the blockbuster Arthur remake, it's like, you're 100% right. Jennifer Garner, immediately recognizable to audiences. We know she's a great actress. She's being one of the funnier characters in the film. Consistently. Yeah. Like you said, they have great sex. That's established. That they have this history together. When, like you said, when he said she's not spontaneous, she does the most spontaneous thing ever. Yeah. And they're trying to play it to, like, let me stuff the kind of mousy indie girl in the movie room so I can take the, like, again, I'm saying the word edgy, but, like, the character that has that kind of, like, Liza Minnelli edge.
Right. Is the one we're supposed to hate.
And it's like, the movie's like...
It makes more sense for Arthur to want her. What are you doing, movie?
Totally does. But I guess, like, she's born because she kind of cares about how...
Money.
It's not like money. It's like, she cares about her career. Yeah, you made the woman who cares about her career the villain, and, like, the kind of, like, I'm just... I don't know, like...
Edgy tour guide?
I just don't understand... Again, the problem here, where it's like, does it make more sense for you to publish her book, or does it make more sense for you to give her the couple dollars for the license for the touring? Like, or both. Why not both? I just, like, she felt like she needed Arthur, and I think that because Arthur needed Hobson, like, transitive property, it's like, who's helping who by the end of this film? Like, Was she so like incapable of like figuring out her own shit that she needed this rich guy to come along? Because like Liza Minnelli could have. I see the movie too, where she spends the rest of her life just doing what she's doing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a tougher life, but like whatever. She's a New York edgy, tough chick that's gonna like make her own way, and that's what Arthur loves about her.
Mm-hmm.
Greta Gerwig, she's artsy and
quirky. She's a little embarrassed about that children's book. Oh, I don't know if I want to.
The Eiffel Tower likes the Chrysler Building. I'm just sitting there like, what the fuck, dude?
I guess that's why you make him like these children's stories and childlike, because he likes that she does it. I don't, but it didn't make sense to me.
But see, like, let's just say, because like it's almost like that Peter Pan complex, right? Mm-hmm. You got Wendy, who starts as a child, but grows up. And it's like when she grows up, it's like, oh, like, you can't be a kid forever.
You can't just keep playing, Peter.
And I think that, like, there's not that turn here where, like, I felt like the arc wrapped up a lot cleaner somehow in the original film than it did in this remake, which is trying to flesh these things out, but by doing so is actually, like you said, you're detracting, you're making other characters more interesting and believable than the character you're trying to tell us. Like, it felt like you said, it feels like a children's story, but you also have a real story going on. And there's that thing again where I just feel like the movie is trying to do the comedy separate from the romance in a way that doesn't feel cohesive.
That's a good point. I never really thought about it like that. But yeah, the comedy is completely separate from the romance. And, when it's Arthur, a comedy, right, I'm leaning towards that comedy. So I'm going to, go to those characters and, try to root for those characters. So I'm rooting for Jennifer Garner, even though I'm just not supposed to.
I agree. And do you want to spend time with dads? Like,
we can just briefly talk. I did want to mention them a little bit.
Okay.
Our love interest, Linda and Naomi, they both live with their dads. You don't get as much dad in the remake. Naomi, you see him like just for a second, and Linda's dad, played by Jerry Seinfeld's dad in Seinfeld, he's there a little bit, and I think he's there mostly for comic relief.
Feels like it.
But one good thing he does in the original, because he is there more, you get more time with Linda. You get to again, which makes her more interesting, more fleshed out.
Right.
And by cutting back on the dad in the remake, less time with Naomi, less time for me to care about her.
In the film, the original film, you spend more time with Linda. The dad's there, but like it's again just another springboard for
Linda.
For Linda, and I just felt like that dad felt a little more fleshed out, and he's throwing quips in there. Like it didn't really add anything other than that screen time with Linda. In the remake, I mean, take it or leave it. Like the dad leaves zero impact for me.
He's in there for one scene. He's just like, come on in the house.
That's it. And I felt, all right, if you're going to do that, it's kind of a missed opportunity there. Mm-hmm. Or you're better off doing what the film was doing originally, where like, oh, he's a heavy sleeper. Like it's actually funnier for you to never see him.
Yeah, that's true.
So again, edge to the original. Not even because of the portrayal, just the fact that it actually serves the ends of the movie better.
Yeah, let's know Linda more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you want to get into the Susan Johnson's dad. Stephen Elliott is the original Burt Johnson, and then we have, like you said, Nick Nolte in the remake. Okay, you seemed like you had something to say there, so I'll let you start it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is the film choosing to put its star power in like interesting places that I don't think pay off as much as they should have. Nick Nolte, is not in the movie very long. No. He's kind of the more blue collar of the dads. Like he's like, I'm a construction worker from Pennsylvania.
That's why she has to marry him, because she's like, because where my dad came from, everybody like ridicules my name, so I need to marry you. Or
it's like kind of like the idea of like new money, like she doesn't have the legitimacy that the Bach name would give them.
Right.
The dad doesn't give a shit about that at all. He's just there to be like, I love my baby, and you better respect her, or I'm gonna cut your fingers with a saw. I thought that the idea of like the saw being like moisture detecting, I found that to be unnecessary and an odd choice.
I mean, it's a real thing, not the moisture detecting, but there are saws that I think I read that it's not moisture, but it's like the electric current going through your skin or something. So saws do retract, so you don't lose your fingers. It is a real thing. was a little over the top to make him put his tongue to the saw. So I could see your point there, but go on.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was one of those things where you got this big star, and he's not going to do much other than be a little scary and then, be a little mad later.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going. Like, the setup of Nick Nolte, I liked it a lot, right? Yeah. It's, he gets shot with nails.
Right.
He doesn't even flinch. He's just like, what? You don't get where I'm at. Now we're both doing it. You don't get where I'm at without getting a few nails in you, Arthur. Yeah. And, and he is this imposing figure. He puts Arthur's tongue up to a saw blade.
Yeah.
It does go away. It doesn't cut him, but, there's this setup that, like, oh, man, he's really going to do something to Arthur if he breaks off this engagement. Yeah. You know why we really think that, too? Because we saw the original.
Right.
And the original dad has this story. He's telling Arthur how he kills a man with a knife when he's 11 years old. And you're like, holy shit, that's nuts. But you know what? It pays off.
Yes, it pays off.
Because later in the movie, when Arthur breaks off the engagement, where did the dad's eyes go? To the knife! So when you see the dad get the knife, you're just like, holy shit, they're going for it. This is amazing. You set it up early, and then it pays off later.
Absolutely.
Thank you, movie.
Absolutely. And
now, just before we go more into that, like, the remake does not have that moment at all. Nick Nolte doesn't do anything the rest of the movie.
Jennifer Garner throws the punch.
Yeah. You don't give Nick Nolte anything to do.
It's such a shame because, like you mentioned, that first film, that's such a wild scene because, like, it's more of, it's an Arthur scene as well. Like, it's Arthur showing up, he's driving drunk to meet with the dad. He parks all on the grass and he's like, he throws out some line, I don't remember, but it was a funny line. You meet this dad who's just like, talking about his hunting and stuff like that. And you mentioned it's like, he goes in this insane story about killing a man.
When he's 11.
And I think it all worked out because he was like a minor or something. Like, there was something to that backstory.
It was pretty nuts. And, it's like, why am I hearing this weird thing? And you learn why at the end of the movie, because it totally pays off. It is such a hilarious moment when that dad looks at that knife and he's like, Arthur.
And, like, I don't know, like, when Arthur's interacting with him, because they're in the study or wherever they are, and he's pouring a drink, and he's reacting, but he's reacting as drunk Arthur. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, because he's not drunk that often in the film, in the remake, it's just kind of a, like you said, scary thing for Russell Brand. Like, the other Arthur's like, he's doing his Arthur thing.
You're making fun of the moose head and everything.
Right. And then, for the dad to, like, go ape shit and, like, punch him out in the back and, like, you get to see the wedding attendant. He's like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, you're just seeing their reactions. You're just hearing Arthur screaming. And then you see him all, like, tattered up, bloodied up.
Yeah. And I felt like the anger from the Bach family, as it were, in that scene makes a lot more sense.
A lot more justified. Hey, you're beating up our heir. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like,
you're gonna kill him with a knife. We gotta impose. We have to stop this.
Right. It's like they may be upset with Arthur's behavior, but it's like, he's a Bach, and you're not gonna kill my son or grandson, as it were. But also just like, they get to sort of flex their family name as like, first of all, you're not killing a Bach, so we can stop that right now. Whereas, like, in the remake, you just shoehorn in this idea that, like,
how dare you use him, even though we were going to use you.
Yeah, totally. So it's like, and then Nick Nolte just stands there.
I don't know. You set it up and then you don't use it. I'm thinking because you established Jennifer Garner as this really strong, independent woman, you can't just have her kind of be like, oh, he's not going to marry me. Right. So you have to make her do something, I guess. But then you just take away from Nick Nolte's character, and then that whole point of him getting threatened by Arthur was completely pointless.
It's funnier if, like, he throws the first punch and she's like, hold on, I'm going to get mine too. You know what I mean? Like, there's something there, but, like, it's like, why would you have Nick Nolte there, other than, I guess, trying to get people to go see the movie itself, because he doesn't actually do anything in the film. So it's like, it could be anybody else.
Dude, how funny would it have been if he brought a power saw to the wedding, too?
Oh, that would have been hilarious.
If he's just like, let me go to my car, and then he comes out with a fucking handsaw, he's like, Arthur, and then he's just chasing him with it? Oh my god!
Hilarious.
It would have been amazing.
But yeah, like, he's just kind of stiff back there. He's like, I'm upset. And then she's like, no, let me. And she punches him. And it's just like, all right, so Nick Nolte is just the saw. Like you said, the staple gun was hilarious. It's like, all right, here's a little bit of humor.
Nail gun.
Yeah, nail gun. Thank you. The nail gun's hilarious. It's like, here's this humor.
He's like impervious to pain. He will inflict pain on you. You know, this guy's like a Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
And you do nothing with him.
Nothing. I don't know. Just the idea of Arthur in the first film getting roughed up and there being some stakes there.
Yeah.
You know, again, you're building out these two characters like Liza Minnelli being like, "Oh my God, he's gonna kill us!"
Yeah.
You know, like they're both like laid out on the floor. And it's just like, again, there's that chemistry.
Yeah.
And there's these characters that you've introduced us to interacting the way that I would expect based on what you told me.
Yeah, she's not like, okay, he's gonna kill you, Arthur. I'm okay. She's like, yeah, he's gonna kill us.
Us.
Beautiful point.
Is Greta Gerwig even in that scene? She's not. Right?
No, she's not there at all. She's not at the church because she's
upset and yes. So it's like you really don't even still have like the pullback of the Naomi character the same way. Like Liza Minnelli is there.
Yeah,
she showed up. She's telling Arthur like, screw it. Like they're like, we don't need the money.
Right.
You know, there's all of this character building for your actual love interest that's happening. Whereas this film did the rom-com turn of like, here's the bad thing the main character did that's unforgivable until like I pick up the boombox or show up on a horse. You know, like they did that, took the character out of the film, went through with like most of the wedding, and then just kind of like, nah.
It was really lazy. Yeah.
I just didn't know where we were going from there because it felt shoehorned. Like, okay, now the mom knows she's evil, or like Arthur thinks she's evil. Arthur thinks the sky is green. You know what I mean? Like Arthur is not a person that I'm taking any sort of serious logic or advice from. So it's like if he thinks she's evil, it's because he's an idiot, and she's clearly very capable. So like you shoehorned in this idea of like, blah, and it's just like it didn't work.
No,
it didn't work.
It didn't work for me at all. I mean, I love that. Just seeing that knife in the original ending, dude. I was laughing so hard when I saw that knife.
It's funny as shit, dude. And I'm sitting there like, yo, is he gonna stab me?
It's good. Yeah.
And man, like, you know, I would say like if you're talking apples to apples, like, is Greta Gerwig a better actress than one from the originals? Well, excuse me, than Liza Minnelli? Probably, you know, but like.
I wouldn't know from that performance or what she was given in that movie. So just to sum that part up, I mean, I think it's obvious, but it sounds like I prefer the original Linda. I prefer both the original dads, but I'm going to lean towards the Susan Johnson in the remake just because I like what Jennifer Garner did. I like what she was given. And if I was Arthur, I would have went with her.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where like, because like the casting choice, like if you swap it around, like if Greta Gerwig was like Susan Johnson, we were like matching those up. I'm like, oh yeah, I like Greta Gerwig. And if you were like Liza Minnelli versus Jennifer Garner, I'm like, oh yeah, I like Jennifer Garner. You're 100% right. That like, think about an original in a remake. Look at your casting. Like, if you were doing like a Point Break remake, like you got Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze, would you do like Brad Pitt and then like some indie act? You know, like it doesn't make any sense to like match them up like that. So I just felt like I'm with you. The original Linda is better than Naomi. She's got a lot of edge, and I believe their romance. Susan Johnson, clear edge to Jennifer Garner, but with the caveat being that like choosing to make that Susan so cool.
Yeah. That was a big mistake.
It was a huge mistake.
I think you nailed it before because you said the original Arthur wants that edgy girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's Susan Johnson in the remake.
Agreed.
And then the reason he doesn't want to be with Susan Johnson in the original is because she's kind of boring. That's Naomi in the remake.
Agreed.
You swapped the roles remake. What were you doing?
Right. It's just like this idea of the quirky girl is not exactly what Liza Minnelli was.
No, she wasn't.
She wasn't even quirky, really. She was just a fast talker. She was a bit of a scammer, but like in a good way. That like those two worked together because it took away her need to do the things that she was doing because she had the backing of Arthur, but it also made Arthur have to like contest with someone that actually would punch back. Like
Right.
Greta Gerwig doesn't really punch back, other than the scenes where, oh, I can't believe you didn't believe in me enough to like make my own choices. Like I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it.
Not good at all. Do we want to get to any other characters? You had sort of mentioned the grandma. She's not in the remake. Any issues there? The consolidating there?
I think the consolidation was good because there's a bit of confusion. Like the grandmother is there kind of in the beginning when they're at dinner, but she's not really in the scene.
Yeah.
She's referenced. She has some funny lines, and she's kind of like the one that's like, don't touch my grandson.
Yeah.
But consolidating into the mom, actually, we didn't talk about this, but like the mom character actually, I think, is a bit stronger in the remake. Not that it even matters, which is why we didn't get into it.
Yeah.
Just because she's a little more fleshed out.
She has more to do. Like, I don't even remember the dad in the original.
Right.
Like, other than that scene in the office, like, was he at the... I don't even remember if he was at the wedding, honestly. Like, he does so little after that. So, yeah, it makes sense that you didn't need his mom and, like, a grandfather or a grandmother, too.
Right.
Like, they both were pretty much saying the same thing to Arthur the whole time. Like, you need to marry this woman. So making them one character, just the mom figure in the remake, made sense to me.
Totally made sense. So the consolidation was good because other than like a couple of lines towards the end of the film, the grandmother was inconsequential to me. The only other character where I could say you have a difference, and it's still a very minor character, again, with some interesting star choices, Bitterman.
Yeah.
In the original, Bitterman...
He doesn't really do much.
He doesn't do anything.
Just the chauffeur, really. He doesn't do anything other than just drive Arthur around.
Right.
Which is important because Arthur's drunk all the time.
Exactly.
And he still drives, though, sometimes.
Unlike the remake, like, where it's Louis Guzman.
Yeah.
They make that Bitterman just kind of, like, dumb in the remake.
Yeah, it doesn't
which
really...
didn't make sense.
Yeah, because he's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think you hire him.
Yeah.
Use him.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be like more of a friend to Arthur, you know, kind of more of an equal playing field. But no, he's just very like subservient and just like, yes, sir. And he's not funny at all. He doesn't understand humor or anything. Really, he's pretty dumb.
It's really strange. Like,
definitely underutilized him.
I guess they had him there to put him in a Robin costume. Like I guess it's funny that Louis Guzman's dressed up as Robin, but like
he's overweight. I don't know.
But see, even that, somehow getting a better, quote-unquote better, you know, I don't know enough about the original actor. I just know he didn't do much. But, like, having the potential that Louis Guzman has, like...
Yeah.
Like, you see him in movies like Waiting. Like, you could have done something like that where they're both...
Boogie Nights, man. He's great in Boogie Nights.
He didn't say or do anything.
Yeah.
And actually, the original actor... brings more to the movie because when Hobson is dying, he's sad as shit. And it actually makes sense. I don't even remember that Bitterman reacting to Hobson dying. Maybe he does, Louis Guzman, but I don't remember it.
I don't remember it either.
And it's just like, somehow this great actor, great comedic actor especially, loses the battle to a guy that like has like 2 lines.
Yeah, and he's also, the original Bitterman also has a scene with Linda, too, when he drops her off, and, you know, you see how cool he is. He's like, I'll open the door for you,
Right,
too.
right. He plays along.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. Yeah, he has more to do than this other actor who's, you know, I know him a lot more.
Sure. I think it's because he's functional. Like, everyone around Arthur has, at least to an extent, their shit together.
Yeah.
So, like, having Arthur be a man-child, and then Bitterman also being a step below Arthur. Whereas, like, this other Bitterman probably does a decent amount of keep him out of trouble that's not really...
Yeah, being a chauffeur for the drunk. That definitely helps.
Huge job. And, you know, like, I don't know. Like, it just never felt like you said, that they were on equal ground. And I just found it to be a strange choice that sort of...
Because I feel like he's just so well known, Luis, and it's like, why are you underutilizing him so much? Like, again, just terrible casting choice. Yeah. You put the star power in the worst roles.
Yeah, yeah. I just think, like, if you're doing which is why you probably don't see this type of advertising. The Arthur remake, like when you look at the poster, it's basically just Russell Brand.
No, it's actually Russell Brand, Helen Mirren, and Jennifer Garner.
Okay, so then you got that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Whereas like the Arthur original, it's Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli. The two stars are the two love interests. Just messaging seems on point there. And messaging, you're right. I forgot about that. Because I've seen some of the promos where it's just kind of like him. But
Okay.
But like, no, you're right. The Helen Mirren and Jennifer Garner, that makes sense. If you wanted people to go see your movie, those are the people that you would have put in the starring roles.
Yeah, and Helen Mirren and Jennifer Garner are probably the two best roles in the movie.
Absolutely. So a lot of weird missteps that I think could have been avoided in the remake.
Anything with characters you want to go over? Because I think I've pretty much covered everything.
No, I think all the major players are in there. There's some side characters, but like everyone that mattered in the arc, I think we got to, and it seems like we're leaning heavily towards the original with that.
All right, then I guess the only other thing that's really different is, I guess, kind of the endings.
Sure.
I guess I'll just go over them really briefly. The original ends at the wedding, after the ceremony. Like you said before, Linda's with Arthur. She's kind of licking his wounds. He's kind of like, oh, this sucks. We know we're poor, but whatever. We got each other. His grandmother overhears this, and she's like, well, you know what, Arthur? Screw it. You can still be with her and get all your millions.
Right.
And he's like, nah, screw that. I don't want to follow your lifestyle anymore. And then he goes over to her and talks and goes back to Linda. He's like, yeah, we got the money. I'm not a fucking idiot. You know?
Right.
So, like, play with your expectations a little bit there. But that's pretty much where the movie ends.
Right.
At the ceremony, he's got Linda. He's got the money. Everything's pretty much going to go good until, I guess, on the rocks. Well, because you can talk about that a little bit later. And then the remake does not end at the ceremony. Because as you mentioned, Naomi's not there.
She's not there.
No. Yeah. But Arthur's still, like, I guess essentially we're led to believe cut off, but then it jump cuts the movie. We're months later where Arthur is in AA.
Yep.
Someplace we visited earlier in the remake that we didn't touch upon.
Yeah.
And not only is he in AA, I guess he says he's volunteering. It's another thing we didn't talk about. It's Arthur tried to get like a normal job in the remake, which I guess was played for yucks.
I'll give him that him going for the job was kind of funny. I thought it was odd that they didn't just let him be the mascot. I couldn't figure out why he couldn't just. It seemed like the perfect job for him, but apparently, corporate didn't like it.
I don't know the politics of the candy world.
I would say that was an odd but sort of strong scene in the remake, and then
better scenes for sure.
And then the AA scene was, I would say, Helen Mirren's big scene for me in the remake where. She's doing the AA meeting, but as Arthur.
Yeah.
And powerful stuff. Things that like played to some laughs and to some like with some heart, but I don't know. Like when you get into more of this ending, I think that stuff gets lost.
Yeah. So Arthur's in AA, and then I forget how, but he finds out that there's a book signing. Naomi finally...
He's just like walking around and he sees like a sign.
Sure, why not? He sees that she's doing a book signing.
But it's his publishing company.
Is it still his publishing company?
I imagine it still is at that point.
I don't know. I thought like... I would assume... I don't know. They don't actually spell it out for you, which is amazing because they're doing so much hand-holding up to this point. I'm going to assume that it was a different publishing company because he's surprised by it.
Maybe. I hope so.
That's what I'm thinking.
I hope so.
Anyways, he shows up at the book signing and he says, I have another story. I'll tell you another story. And then he tells a stupid story and then she immediately forgives him, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're together and he has his money too.
Yeah.
And then you see the cars again at the end.
Yeah, and then again, you've taken a random assortment of small children playing extras and giving them more lines than half. Like, there are kids in that scene that have more lines than Nick Nolte. Like, and they're funny lines, too. Like, the kids are actually, like, some of the funnier people in the film.
Are you Harry Potter?
I'm just so baffled. I found it just odd, Like, I didn't
just dragged on. For me, it drags on. Like I said, the original ends at the ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
and you're dragging it on, and it's not really paying off because why does she forgive him?
It's literally like every generic rom-com ending you've ever seen. I've got a story. It's like, okay, cut to guy. I'm surprised it wasn't raining. You know,
You should have just had the boombox.
Yeah, totally. And it's just like his story was also nonsensical. You know, it's like, oh, a guy who really messed up and he should have. And I'm just sitting there like, is that all it takes? Like, no, they still have like issues they got to like work out. You know?
Apparently not, because him trying to boost her career with his own publishing company and she just forgave him immediately. I don't know.
Yeah, and
it was weak. It really weakened her character too, because she seemed like, no, I don't. How could you do this? Like, how you don't have faith that I can do this myself?
Right.
Like, when she gets mad at him, so she's like, no, screw you, Arthur. I don't want you in my life anymore. I'm going to do this. I'm going to publish this book.
Right.
And then she gets the book published, which is great, good for her. And then she just forgives him immediately.
Yeah,
I didn't understand it.
And then you also just say, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm still rich.
Yeah. P.S. I'm rich.
I just don't. I don't know what the messaging was, because like there's all this push now towards like empowerment, diversity, inclusion. Like you have in my mind the good character, and you've made her the villain, and it's just like it doesn't feel great that Greta Gerwig. Like, yeah, I'm glad that she's following her dreams or something like that, but like she doesn't really have much ambition, and like she's rewarded while the person who's like planned her whole life and like did all the right things except for like 2 minutes in a wedding that rightfully so she's upset about because she's getting left at the altar. Like, oh, because she dared to dream.
Everybody knew what was going on, that wasn't a marriage of love.
100% agree.
It's insane.
I just like, I didn't get it. And the same thing, like Arthur was like, all right, like, because we kind of already went over this, him trying to like go to AA and him trying to like do all this stuff. Like, we already kind of hashed over this. So I guess it's working more now, but like then we also find out he's still rich. Like,
yeah.
What's the point? I guess he's doing better and he's running the charitable part of the business.
Yeah, he's not even running the business. It was weird. And like the AA stuff, like it was a powerful scene for Helen Mirren, and I kind of get it because it's like, okay, Arthur needs to kind of like turn shit around, but then like to bring it up at the ending too, because it's not like the alcohol was really ruining his or anybody's life. So I didn't understand. Like, I'm not gonna shit on AA, but it's like in the context of the story, it didn't really add anything.
Right. I think that like Russell Brand has had his own struggles with alcohol in his personal life.
Yeah, he was in rehab at this point. He had stopped doing drugs and alcohol. So that's why I think they put in the AA thing, because he was doing it. So he's like, well, I think there should be a powerful message about Arthur doing it too. Right.
I think that because it feels maybe this is like a passion project for Russell Brand because of his own struggles with alcohol, whereas like Dudley Moore, from what I understand, didn't. And it was a character, and he was playing a character. I think this also got a little too close to Russell Brand's real life, that like his portrayal, I don't think that he like explores the depths of alcoholism where like he probably could have, but maybe that's, especially in that tough time for him, maybe that was too intense for what was going on in his life.
Yeah,
like,
maybe too personal for him.
Which then like at that point it's then kind of like get out of the way. Like someone else could play this character in a way that like could have actually like made a difference for like alcoholics, like someone that like showed how fucked up being an alcoholic can be. Yeah. And Russell Brand just kind of like glosses over it. AA, that'll help,
It'll help, but nothing was really that wrong because we didn't go anywhere with that character. That was too low.
I think that there was another missed opportunity there for like, I just didn't feel convinced by the story in a way that I felt convinced in the original. Like, it's a more probably preposterous set of circumstances, but the chemistry of the characters in that movie, they're enduring.
I don't really have much to add other than I love that Arthur theme song.
I love that Christopher Cross song.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So much.
Well, that's why I recommended it last time, because I had been listening to it like kind of nonstop.
Yeah.
Like, let's do Arthur.
Which is funny, like as soon as you mentioned that, like and I watched the film, I've been listening to that song nonstop. There was a scene, well, the scene where they shut down Grand Central Station. What I hate about that scene in particular, I think it's actually like one of the stronger scenes in the movie. But they play the instrumentals of the song. I'm like, you cowards!
I know they didn't play the original at all. They play a cover during the credits. That's as close as they get.
It's ridiculous. So like,
you cowards.
So it's like, all right, you have the money for the Batmobile, but you don't have the money for the Arthur theme song.
They probably had. I'm gonna assume they had the money for it, but they probably just chose to not.
Did they spend it on Nick Nolte? I mean, even like the Grand Central thing seemed like something they actually did. At night, I guess you probably could have pulled that off fairly easy. But like,
it's true.
But like the idea of like, you got Darth Vader mash, you got.
Yeah, you got there's a lot of licensing, and you got to get the rights to all this 100%. Stuff, man.
And now I'm sitting here, and it's like, the big song, like, okay, I hear it, but I don't hear it. And I don't know, like that song is a great segue for a lot of like the more serious scenes in the film. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best movie theme songs I've ever heard.
It's pretty good.
It feels like it's about the love story in the film, mm-hmm. and it works.
Yeah. All right, unless you have anything else to add, I think we should get to our verdicts. Yeah?
Absolutely.
All right, Reggie, should this remake exist?
So, as I was watching the remake, I kept saying to myself, man, I'm going to hate this film. I'm going to hate this a lot. And as I was watching it, they were hitting a lot of the notes in a way that I thought was like, okay, that's an interesting take on that. They were fleshing things out, some things that didn't need to be, but they were fleshing out the story. I liked it enough that I can say, and I think because of some of the star power of like Jennifer Garner and Helen Mirren, for instance, and he may not pull off a drunk, but he did pull off a kind of like charming enough lead. I liked the movie enough that I was surprised that I didn't completely hate it. I think that it has merit and can exist, especially considering Arthur 2 exists. So the movie should exist, but it's not a great movie. That's my review.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was trying to think, like, while I was watching the original, what can the remake do to really improve upon it or justify it was being made? Usually with a comedy, it's just, you pretty much just improve the jokes. You stick with that basic outline, you improve the jokes. And I don't think the remake did that at all. I barely laughed at the remake. It was weird to watch. So I was just mostly focused on the plot, which, like I said, they flipped the girls. So I cared more about Jennifer Garner than I cared about Naomi, who I'm supposed to care about. And I'm not a big Russell Brand guy. He carries a lot of this movie. If he's not your cup of tea, if I might say, then this is not going to change your mind about Russell Brand at all. It didn't work for me. I don't think this remake should exist. There was just so many problems. And then just talking to you about it more and more, like, I didn't realize that this is kind of two movies in one. It is a comedy with, like, this stupid quirky love story underneath. And you're right, the comedy they never line up at all. They never intersect. You either have just, like, all the yuck jokes up here, and then, or you got your romance story. And I think all the romance stuff is boring in the remake. And that's such a strong part of the original. And they were able to, weave those parts in the original. And I don't think they did it at all in the remake. And when you have me rooting for the supposed villain of the film,
that's fair.
You definitely messed up somewhere. So for me, it's a no. I don't think this remake of Arthur should exist.
Yeah. I think as I talk to you, for sure, and I think we've been finding this a lot more lately, we're finding more of like the different flaws that like you're noticing that may not be on my radar, and vice versa. I know I don't like Russell Brand, so I had very, very low expectations, and I think he actually surpassed what I thought a Russell Brand take on Arthur would be. I thought it'd be a lot more annoying and like I thought he would like lean into like more of the chuckly drunk stuff, and he didn't. I think I preferred a more muted Russell Brand, which is why my very low expectations were met in a way that felt like, okay, I think I fell into the cheesiness of the romance a little bit more than I was expecting. But after talking to you about it, I was like, oh wait, that's completely unrealistic. So like I fell into the rom-com trap that shit doesn't make sense. There's a totally better option right here that for no reason at all the main character is shunning, and we've now turned the best option into the villain. And that's a trope for rom-coms, so I guess they pulled that off. But as you said, they should have been making a, not dark comedy, but like a comedy with some edge to it the way the first film was.
Yeah.
It's so much better. But,
Yeah, I don't know. Russell Brand just didn't work for me. I don't know exactly what I expected. I guess I kind of expected the drunk. I expected some humor. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the best jokes in the remake still were just jokes from the original still.
Absolutely.
And they even lost some of his charm. This is the one scene at the engagement party where Dudley Moore is legitimately like playing piano, like amazing.
Yeah.
And he's playing like funny songs like at moments, and it's like, hey, what do you think about your engagement? He's like, Blue Moon, you left me standing alone.
Yeah.
You know, he's with that. It's witty, it's talent. You know, it's good stuff. And then you have kind of the same kind of scene in the remake, but he's not playing piano,
Right.
and he's not singing well-known songs. He's just kind of making up stupid words to a boring melody, and that's supposed to be equally charming. It wasn't.
No.
It didn't work for me. A lot of the remake didn't work for me. I really had problems with Naomi and Susan Johnson in the remake. They messed those characters up.
They totally missed it. Totally missed the mark. Yeah, like I said, I'll stick with as I was watching it what my impression was. But the more this conversation goes on, no, it's true. Like they don't land very good jokes. They don't really capture the character. But sticking with my guns.
Sure, fair enough.
Good enough. Do not, unless you really want to, don't go see it. But there's enough there that it's a film. You can read
It's a film. No, I think stick with the original any day of the week. That one's much better. Did you want to talk a little bit about the sequel? Had you seen all that?
Yeah, so I liked the first Arthur so much, and I was watching on HBO, so like Arthur 2 was there.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'm hungover. I'll watch a little bit of this. Arthur 2, this is the spoiler section of the podcast. Arthur 2 should not be a thing because...
so that should not exist.
Maybe that's why I was giving the remake so much leeway now that we're talking about it. I didn't finish Arthur 2, just full disclosure. But from what I saw, it felt awful because it took the arc of the first film, which I think is a very satisfying arc. Mm-hmm. The drunk, the friend dies, he's better during that time period before he dies, becomes a drunk again, fixes up enough of his life to get with the love of his life.
Right.
And things all seem to work out fine. Arthur 2 is like 3 years later, and he's a drunk again. He's doing all the... Because they're playing up the Arthur character.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing all the stuff again. It's like, oh, none of that mattered because he sucks again. And like maybe there's a turn by the end of the film, but like even the fact that the film begins with basically Arthur in this same situation but married to Liza Minnelli, I felt like, oh, you weakened this great character by just showing that he didn't grow or progress in any way. So Arthur 2, I cannot recommend it.
Okay.
And I think it actually ruins the first movie if you let it.
Jeez.
Yeah. But I didn't let it. It just
okay. There you go.
I pretend Arthur 2 is non-canon.
I think a lot of people do. Okay, unless you got anything else, shall we pick
the
next film?
Let's work out the next film.
All right, let's see. We just did a comedy. Before that, we did an action movie. And then I think we did a sports comedy. What about sci-fi, maybe?
Sci-fi could be good. Let's see. Like, are we doing more like heavy sci-fi? Or what do you?
I don't know.
What do you think?
What about? We just kind of talked about this actor, but he only had a cameo in this movie. What about The Fly?
Hey, The Fly.
Fly.
All right.
Okay.
Little Goldblum action.
There we go. All right. Let's change it up. Go back to sci-fi with The Fly.
The Fly. Yeah. I think that puts us right in a genre we haven't really looked at in a while.
Yeah. I don't think so. It's really Solaris.
Solaris, yeah, which It's kind of offbeat for sci-fi. I remember us both liking the film Solaris, but like I don't know how many of our listeners would know it offhand.
Right.
So this is a little bit more mainstream. I'm looking forward to that Goldblum action.
Cool. All right. So next time, let's watch The Fly.
All right.
All right. Well, I'm Dan Bulick. You can find us on Twitter, Retro vs. Remake, Facebook, Retro vs. Remake, Instagram,
Retro vs. Remake.
We got the YouTube channel, which is obviously where you're watching this now.
Yep.
The podcast is on iTunes,
Spotify, Google Play.
So reach out to us. Let us know what you thought. Did you guys agree about Arthur? Did you disagree? Did we miss anything? Definitely let us know in the comments below. But yeah, that'll do it for me.
Yeah, and I'm Reggie Parker. You can find me at RP Comedy on Twitter and Instagram. But definitely check us out on all things Retro vs. Remake. As Dan mentioned, Retro vs. Remake on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. Yeah. Hey,
above.
I'm having a lot of fun watching these films, and I hope you're having a lot of fun listening.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for stopping by. This has been another episode of
Retro vs. Remake.